All right, I have a Chevy Cruze here, and it has the defrost issue. There's probably 5% of the airflow that should be coming out of the defrost vent to defrost the windshield, as opposed to what should be coming out. Everything else seems to be working fine. It switches from the air conditioning and between vents just fine, but the defroster is at 5% flow, basically just not working. So I decided to fix this myself, and I want to thank Adam S. and Brad Parmenter and the auto repair guys, as I viewed all of their videos prior to making this one, and their videos basically gave me all the information I needed to get this fixed. And it's a pretty cheap fix, but the repair shop said, "Oh, this is on the firewall. It's a cheap part, but it's going to cost up to $2,000 in labor. We have to take the whole dash off and the center console and everything else to get to it." So I decided for the $20-$30 in parts and tools at most, that I would just give it a shot. And thanks to those YouTube videos, which I'll provide a link for below, those other YouTube videos, you might find those very helpful. But I just wanted to add on a little bit to them, because there were things that I found when I was working on this, that I just thought I'd give a little more detail, like things that I discovered that weren't in those videos, basically. So you see I pulled the dash cluster off, or the speedometer. I pulled it off, and you see that gear in there. And those are the two holes you can reach through them and work on them. And I think it was Adam S.'s video that said hopefully it's the easy fix for you, because there's these two gears. One of them's reachable here. The other one you have to pull the airbag out and some other panels down below and lay on your back and reach up in the dash. I lucked out so far. Hopefully it's the only one, but I was able to reach through there, and with some minor bruising and cuts on my forearms, I was able to get this one fixed. So I thought I would put together a video and see if I could help somebody else out who might run into a couple of things that I ran into. And later in this video, I show how to reassemble the dash cluster and that, so you'll at least be able to see how I put it back together to some extent. So that might help you take it apart, or you can view those other videos that I talked about. But basically, there's a gear in there, that white gear, and you see on top of it, you can somewhat see here, there's another gear that turns, and that little gear to the right and above that big white gear is the one that needs to turn, I'll say, forward on the top side in order to engage the defrost. And what I found is that the little piece that turns that small gear on the top, that little gear, if you see it top right there. Yes, so I got it here. So that's the one that if you twist it forward on the top, right, it'll turn backwards on the bottom. It engages the defrost more. So beneath that is the part you need to replace, and it's a little triangle piece I'll show later in this video. But basically here it is. This is the one I pulled out. This little triangle piece, the teeth on it turn the bottom of that small circular wheel, and so obviously it turns backwards on the bottom, which turns it forward on the top, and that's what engages it. So there's a little cylinder that slides onto, and see it's circular there as it slides onto the cylinder, and then it's got kind of a different shape on the back to prevent it from sliding off, and that little other circle I just touched fits into the gear on the bigger gear, the bigger wheel that we'll be taking apart. And this is the replacement part that I purchased. It's a Doorman brand, but obviously there's a factory brand. There's probably other options you can buy, but something that's a little better quality than the factory part that broke. And so reaching through the dash holes here behind the speedometer, I did buy a 5.5 millimeter wrench from Amazon. This little kit, I think it was $10. I also used, I think it's 7/32 socket here with an extension, and leveraging some glue or tape or something. I use tape when reinstalling, but all of those can help to loosen up that bolt that's in the center of that large round white gear. And this is the part that I'm talking about. I might say bolt or screw. I guess I'd call it more of a screw. Right in here, there's a screw that's a 5.5 millimeter head that you need to unscrew. There's a little metal bracket piece on the back side or directly touching the head of the screw, which holds that little black plastic piece. And you see where my finger's pointing here. There's a little, basically think of it as like a button that also holds that white gear on, in addition to that little screw and metal bracket. So once you remove the screw and metal bracket, you need to push that in, as I'm kind of indicating, in order to get that white gear off. So what I did is I reached in through the dash, and then I'm trying to illustrate here, I grabbed around the wheel and used my thumb to then push in that little button, that little black piece that's holding it on, and then I was able to slide the gear to the left. I didn't remove it, I just slid it out. Now I did fully remove the screw and the bracket, so that's worth noting. And once you have slid that gear to the left, you'll be able to see the part you need to remove visually, and then you can reach in there and just pull it out. And then I basically went on feel. I took that black replacement piece and I reached back in there. Of course, that large wheel was slid over to the left, and beneath that small one on the top right, I was able to reach in and basically find that little circle cylinder that new part needed to slide onto. And then I left all of the teeth basically in front of that small wheel, thinking, well, when it engages, it'll move backwards, pushing the top of the gear forward and engage the defrost. And then once I had that small piece on that cylinder, I slid the large white gear back to the right, and then it kind of then it locks into that small circle piece on the replacement part. And then I used this packaging tape to tape the screw onto the socket so that I wouldn't lose the screw in the dash. And once the screw got started inside the center of that gear, and I had to tape on the I had to tape on that metal bracket. This one was for the dash. But just to illustrate, I had to tape on that metal bracket as well. I just taped it all on to get that screw started so I wouldn't lose it. And then once it's started, it's pretty solid in there, so you can, rip that tape off. You can reach in and cut it off, or you can just, pull on it. I would limit your tape usage. You don't want it to be stuck. And so, like I mentioned, I lucked out where it was this top piece, which is reachable through the dash cluster holes. You can, reach in there, you can get that installed. You're kind of doing it with limited sight and with an uncomfortable feel to get it in there. But I was fortunate in that this is all I had to do. At least so far, it's been working just fine. So this is the only broken piece I found. If there are two parts like this that could be broken, and that would require you then going under the steering wheel, removing the airbag, removing a couple plastic panels, and I would encourage you to visit the other great YouTube videos that were made that I linked below if you have to take it to that second step. What I'm just trying to do here is provide a little more detail for kind of the easy step one. And then once you have this fixed, basically you put the dash back in place, and there's 3 screws. So for disassembly, it's 3 screws on top of the speedometer. There's technically 5, but there's 3 on the top. This is reassembly, so in reverse order. 3 on the top, and then beneath there are two. So there's a plastic piece on top of the steering wheel. You pop up. You can kind of see a hole to the right and to the left there. Those are 7 millimeter screws that come out. Again, I used, my ratchet, wrench, and tape for reinstallation for getting these in there. But it's, 5 screws to get, the bottom and the top of the dash cluster or speedometer cluster out. And then this top piece kind of fits in. You slide it forward under there for reinstallation and push down on the back. Obviously, you do the reverse for taking it off, where you'd want to pop up the back and slide it kind of towards the front of the vehicle in order to remove it to access those 3 screws. And there is one plug on the dash cluster that is pretty easy to unplug. There's like a little plastic piece you have to flip up and then slide out, but you probably could manage it without even removing the dash cluster plug. And this is the little metric set I purchased after watching some videos on how to do this job. It's probably $10 for all these little wrenches when I really only needed one 5.5 millimeter, but just thought I'd share that in case you guys are looking and curious. And then this is the Doorman product that I purchased, part number. I think I purchased both of these on Amazon. It was a few months ago, but pretty sure that's where I ordered both. So if you guys want to use the products I did, but obviously there's other alternatives out there. Just hopefully this is helpful for you guys. And good luck.